I think back at my past, sometimes I wonder how I made it this far.
I know that like Indigenous like suicide and death rates are like way bigger than any other race in Canada.
We have like a lot of youths that took their own lives.
That one of his friends committed suicide by hanging himself on like one of these trees.
The chances of an Indigenous woman going missing is like 6 times more likely than like a non-Indigenous person.
I don't think they ever did an Amber Alert on an Indigenous student yet.
There's stats proving that the problem, it's a real thing. We're not just crying out for help like Peter who cried wolf. We're actually going missing and people are dying. Victoria Indigenous cause Migizi Sagagan Nishnapik Doji Takaranto Jidad. So my name is Victoria and I come from the Ojibways of Eagle Lake First Nation and I currently live in Toronto.
My mom did her best to try to like keep us cultured as much as we could in the city, but it's hard because you're in the city and you're not connected to the land as much. I know my sisters had like a particularly hard time, I feel like. My sister Keisha was like bullied a lot. She went to like a Catholic high school. She had like a really rough time. She got jumped a few times for like being Native. There was a lot of bad times. I'm not entirely sure exactly what led up to it, but she eventually she attempted suicide, but in that attempt she accidentally did die.
On the phone from her home in Sioux Lookout, Ontario, Norma Kajik is the executive director of the Northern Anishinaabe Education Council, which runs the Dennis Franklin Cromartie High School in Thunder Bay. Students from remote communities stay with families in the city to get the high school education not available on small remote reserves. Between 2000 and 2011, 7 of those boarding students died in the city. Hello, Norma.
Hello.
Lester Glidey, Nindishinakaz, Wanman Lake, Nadunji.
How old are you?
I'm 17 years old, and far away from my community. Thunder Bay is right there, and I live right there. When I'm in like 500 kilometers away from Thunder Bay.
How do you get here?
Plane. It's a flying community.
There's like 28, 24.
You come into DFC and there's a lot to expect, and you go into a boarding home and you don't know them, so it's kind of like awkward at first, but over time you get used to them. And you come from many different reserves. I think there's like over 20 reserves, but since most of the chief and council won't let their students come up, so they're kind of like boycotting. Because what Thunder Bay is very dangerous, especially of the students' bodies that came out, and most of them were students that went here.
Like a personal perspective on it is that just like me, even just going from the reserve into like the next town over, it's not as intense. Obviously, they're being taken from a place that they've grown up all their lives where they probably speak the language with their family and they're surrounded by people who love them and everything. I'm being taken from that and then put into this racist town that is like obviously racist against Indigenous people. And to know that you're going there, because it's like, you know, it's to better your own life in a way, but you have to risk your life in order to try to better it, which is really messed up.
My name is Star Muniz. I am 15 years old. Right now we are at Matawa First Nations Management. When I started my freshman year in high school, things were pretty easy, but my friends, they started to change, and then they fell into drugs and alcohol, and then eventually I did too. And that affected my schooling. It got me into a lot of trouble, and so did my friends. Eventually they kicked me out of school because they thought it wasn't safe for me to be there. They were scared for the other students that I would hurt them or I would hurt myself. I try to be as happy as I can be, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. I look in the mirror and sometimes I start to cry of what I see.
We're outside Sir Winston Churchill High School, and has about 1,000 students compared to our school, which has 100 students. And yeah, I went here, but I didn't like it. And there wasn't really much like Indigenous students there, so they would like to pick on us.
Like being visibly Indigenous, you shouldn't feel ashamed for being who you are, and you should feel proud that you're Indigenous. But I've heard a lot of kids at Churchill are scared of being visibly brown and people knowing that they're Native, and it's just not right.
Yeah, I actually heard there was a student, an Indigenous student here who committed suicide.
Community leaders, friends, and family of 17-year-old Tammy Kiash celebrated the late teen's life as they gathered for a community prayer walk on Thursday afternoon. Kiash and 14-year-old Josiah Begg both went missing on May 6th, and their bodies were found just 2 weeks apart in the Neving-McIntyre floodway.
This river is known as the River of Tears, because that's where all the students from DFC or anybody who has been fallen or pulled out from. They had a cross here for a while, but then they knew they wouldn't want to leave it there. There's a thing posted on Facebook. It was on the city bus. It said Native people should go into the rivers or drown, and that was kind of hurtful, because I don't understand why people hate on Aboriginal people so much.
This is where Tammy Kiash was found.
It said Tammy, she was living in a foster home. Apparently she liked swimming in school. And I believe she was only 17. I think her death was ruled as drowning. It was stated that from her mom and her family that she was a good swimmer, a really good swimmer.
It's just the system, I guess, is obviously not catered towards Indigenous people at all, and just trying to get past and heal from all the trauma that's happened towards us, and feeling our culture and our identity is lost. It's a big part of that. And I feel like a lot of other Indigenous people feel the same way, and we just feel disconnected from ourselves. We feel like dispossessed from like our land and our bodies. And I feel like that has to do with the suicide rate.
It kind of reminds me of home with like all the trails. You mean me too? Yeah, it just reminds me of home.
I've had like a few friends commit suicide in the past like couple years, and I wish I had been there, because looking back on like their Facebook pages, I do see those cries for help, but being so far away, there's nothing I could really do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's times where I didn't want to come to school, or I would just tell my mom, oh, I'm sick, but I just wanted to like stay home.
My friends always had suicidal thoughts. I stayed up one night till 3 because my friend said that she'll see me soon one day. And then she logged out of Facebook.
It's okay.
I don't really remember much of my childhood. Just one thing stands out to me. My childhood was taken from me. It was taken from me by a man and my mom. I still can't get over it. I can't believe it happened when it wasn't supposed to. I have a lot of questions on my mind that I want to ask him. Like, how could you do this to a child? Like, how can you do this to other kids like your own family, just for your own pleasure? And since I kept that to myself for a number of years, it caused me to go through a Great Depression. This one night or afternoon, I was sitting in my room thinking. All the memories, they haunt me. All of the pain, the trauma, the torture, they stuck beside me. It's like stepping on a piece of gum. It follows you wherever you go. And it always will. So that afternoon, I decided to take some pills because I wanted to end it all. I couldn't do it anymore. My mom walked in to my room. She saw me laying on the floor. She just left me there. I remember as a kid, I would cry for my mom. I try not to blame her, because I know it wasn't her fault. Because I've seen her go through a lot too. Intergenerational trauma means to me, if your parent is going through a rough time, so is their parent. And it pretty much all happened since residential school. Their parents got so affected by it. And eventually they would turn to alcohol, and they had kids. They didn't know how to support them because of what they've been through. I am affected too. I see what it did. I heard about the stories. What a horrible place it was. All the pain, the trauma, the abuse. Sometimes it's like the only thing us Aboriginal people know. I think back at my past. Sometimes I wonder how I made it this far.
There's this one saying I really like, actually. It's, our existence is resistance. I guess I want to do what I can for the world to try to make it better for future generations. So I know actually in part of our culture, there's like, it's called 7 generations. So what we do is, part of, I guess, of how we live is that we try to think 7 generations ahead of how it'll affect 7 generations ahead. So we do what we can in the present to make the future better. Yeah.
There's a lot of youth that's been through suicide and that's leaving when they really shouldn't be.
Man, I don't think 15-year-old me would believe where I am right now. Because I have to admit, 15-year-old me, I actually did try committing suicide when I was 15. Because it was like the same age that my sister died. And I remember I was going through like a really rough time. It was like the summer after grade 9. And I was just like, was not happy with life at all. And I was just like, what's the point?
It's not worth it. You're leaving behind people that truly love you. Even though if they don't show it, they're always there for you. And if they aren't, they're going through their own problems that they don't know how to deal with.
Indigenous students that like end up killing themselves or committing suicide, I think it's really sad to hear, because they do have families and they probably have like big dreams.
Things, they get better. It's just a matter of time and getting through it and understanding that there's a shit ton of other people that have felt the way that you have felt and that you're not alone. I know it's super cliche, but it's so true. Everyone's just trying to make it by, and just remembering that you're not alone.
But I'm not gonna give up, though. I'm just still gonna keep going till the very end.
is the stairway to heaven.